here from the counseling office. Some more counselors will be joining us from our office here. And we have Eddie Garcia and Frederick Schulin from Insight Treatment Centers. They're going to be speaking today as well. So just to give you guys a little background about why we're doing this, it's not the most happy topic, we know, but we thought it was a really appropriate way to start out the year, especially given that September was actually Suicide Awareness Month. And Break the Stigma is the name of the workshop series because that is the name of our Mental Health Awareness Week initiative that we started about 3 years ago. So for those of you on the high school campus, you have probably heard, about different things that we've done for that, including having these green shirts, having activities at lunch, trying to build a culture here of awareness and making it so there isn't a stigma about mental health and we can talk about all those uncomfortable things so students feel safe, like they have resources, they have people to come talk to, and that we're being real with them because these are the things that are facing so many of our students. So in bringing more parent education to our campuses, we are starting with a few different workshops, and this is our first. So we're hoping to break the stigma amongst everybody and keep the conversation going, and we're so blessed to have Catherine with us. This is her first year here, and she's amazing as an asset to us in our community, and so she is going to be kind of spearheading today, and lots of great information for you guys. We're so happy you're here. Hopefully you signed in. For those of you that just walked in, we have a sign-in sheet, of course. There's handouts up here, and then, of course, coffee and goodies. We know it's early, so please take advantage of that. And we're going to try to get through a lot of information. We, of course, want to respect your time, but we will be here for questions and so forth afterwards as well. Okay?
In addition, there's a survey that we put together so that you can inform us what you would like us to survey. So you don't have to do it now, but certainly, please, before you leave, just do a little check in the survey, maybe add your own topics.
Right, because as we said, this is our first workshop. So for future workshops, we'd love to hear, like she was saying, what do you guys care about? What do you hear your kids talking about? What are you worried about? What do you want to see us highlight? So that we know, we want to make sure you come, and we want to make sure we're giving you relevant information. So definitely, please fill out the survey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is, it is a very difficult topic in the early morning, so I really, really appreciate everyone being here. I have, oh, she just told me about her. I want to engage in a conversation. I don't want to just stand up here talking. So it's important for us to talk about it to break the stigma. And suicide is one of those topics that students don't want to talk about and families don't want to talk about. But it is impacting our students all the time. The rise in suicide has doubled over the past 5 years. So it's a very serious topic, and we really need to address the factors. So today I'm going to be talking about some myths versus facts around suicide. I'm going to be talking about what are the characteristics, the risks, and maybe some protective factors, how you can help, assessment and intervention when it comes to the school. And then we have Eddie and Frederick from the Insight Treatment Center. We're going to talk about treatment. So I had a student in my office yesterday that was filled with anxiety. I need to get good grades, to get into a good college, to have a good and happy life. I need to get good grades. It was repetitive over and over again. I need to get good grades to get into a good college. And I don't have good grades right now. And I said, well, let me look at your grades. Well, you have 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. But we're in the middle of the semester. That's not good enough. That's not going to get me into a good college. And then I'm not going to be happy. And I'm not going to be, I don't know what to do. I don't have good grades. This is what's happening. Now, it's a society problem, right? It's not one person's problem. It's a society problem. that if you go to college, that doesn't necessarily equal to happiness. When you go to college, that doesn't always necessarily equal to a good job. Happiness comes from within. If you don't have mental health, if you don't have a solid foundation of being able to cope with the world around you, when you leave college, life is going to be challenging. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing this anxiety from the youth today because it's scary. It's a scary time right now. Financial instability, social factors, right? Social media. They're getting information and messages about what's happening in society immediately. And they don't have the brain and the developmental and the experience to be able to handle all this information that's coming to them. Their brain is literally not developed enough to be able to deal with all these difficult things that they're experiencing in their life right now. There's many factors why there's a rise in suicide. But I want to talk about some myths and some facts. So on your table, I just put little, some of you have a little flyer. Yeah, number 1. If someone could read that at your table right there.
Teens who threaten suicide are just seeking attention.
Teens who are threatening suicide, they're just seeking attention. They just want attention. Is that true? Or is that a myth? What do you think? The fact is that all attempts, all threats need to be seen as serious and as an intent to want to die. Some of them might be looking for attention. Let's give them the attention. If it's an attention-seeking behavior, they need attention. They need help, so let's give it to them. But not all of them are seeking attention. Some of them are looking for ways of an out of a situation that they have no idea how to handle. Maybe a bullying situation at school. We've heard about those kinds of situations in school, right? Okay. All teens. Number 2. Who's got number 2 on their? Could someone read that?
All teens who have suicidal thoughts are depressed.
Is that true? No? Well, depression is definitely a factor, and a lot of kids who are suicidal are depressed. It's not always the situation. It doesn't necessarily even need to be present when someone is thinking about killing themselves. So if some of you were here at when I first talked, you might know this, but
suicide is the second leading cause of death among ages 15.
Is that true or myth? So yes, it's true. It used to be the third in the year 2000, but it's climbing. So if you look at this, 12 out of 100,000 deaths, ages 15 to 19. I think honestly the next one is even more startling, that when they get to college, the suicide rate goes up. Each day, on an average, 3,000, I don't know how they got to such a obscure number, but 3,069 suicide attempts, grades 9 to 12. Each day. That's, I don't, that, this is all done by the Center for Disease Control. In 2017, they did a big survey, national survey, and they got these statistics. These are from 2017, by the way. So it may have gone up. It may have gone down. I want to talk a little bit about the characteristics of suicide. A person is usually ambivalent. What does that mean? That means they have a wish to live and they have a wish to die. And we need, as someone who's working with that person, needs to be validating both sides. Not just saying, oh, you don't want to die. No, there's so much to live for. Well, then we're not validating what it's really feeling, what we're really experiencing inside. they're ambivalent, they're confused. They don't see any alternative to their pain and their emotional suffering. And suicide ultimately is a form of communication. The communication is broken down so much that they have no other way. This is their ultimate goal. So depression is definitely a risk factor. If a student has a depressive episode, they might have, studies show that they will have another depressive episode in 2 years. It's an increase for drug use and pregnancy. Over half of the depressed students and youth will attempt, and 7% will complete suicide. Early identification and treatment is important, of course. So signs of depression. Signs of depression in youth is much different than signs of depression in adults. It's very, very different. It can be. You will see oversensitivity. Now, a lot of this is going to seem like just your regular teenager, by the way. This is the hard part, right? Of course, they're overly sensitive as teenagers, and they're moody. A lot of them are irritable. Okay, but this is when I talk about these signs. These are maybe a drastic change from what you've seen before. Drastic changes, right? Not just your regular moody, kind of stressed out kid because they've got a lot going on. Low self-esteem, somatic complaints, headaches, stomach aches, back aches. They're always complaining. They can't go to school because there's always something going on with them somatically. Irritability, hostility, sleep disturbances, definitely. If you don't sleep, you cannot handle your mental health problems that come your way. I'm not going to go through it. There's a lot of information. We're going to have these slides available to you too, all right? I want to say one of the things that when I'm working with the Department of Mental Health, what they are noticing more now than ever is that anxiety, high, ongoing anxiety turns into depression. And they're seeing kids, the psychiatric mobile response team is seeing kids more with high anxiety wanting to kill themselves than necessarily a depressive symptom. High anxiety, they have no way out. Life is over, they can't cope anymore. Definitely when they are lacking enjoyment in activities that they once used to love to do. They don't want to. So let's talk about these specific risk factors. We've seen that if someone on YouTube kills themselves, and it's a YouTuber that they've been looking at and watching, that will influence an already very depressed child. That's the scary part. If there has been a loss, a separation, a death in the family, if there's a family crisis, a divorce, maybe finances, if there are barriers and you're having trouble finding mental health, or someone doesn't believe that they in mental health, or it's a shame, mental health is a shame to the family. Experience of disappointment and rejection, that's a big thing that high school kids are feeling. Like if I don't get good grades, I'm going to get rejected. Parents aren't going to be happy with me. I'm not going to get into the college that they wanted me to get into, or I wanted to get to. That's a big deal for someone who's having depression and anxiety. Feelings of stress brought about by perceived achievement needs. That was the student that I had in my office who said she just wasn't good enough. It wasn't going to be good enough. My life isn't going to be good because I'm supposed to get straight A's. And I'm supposed to be better than everyone else to get into that good college, right? Social isolation, serious injury, someone who's an athlete and has a serious injury and that has been taken away from them, terminal illness. There's also what we call socio-cultural risk factors. So divorce, separation, harassment by peers. Your LGBTQ population has the highest risk of suicide. Easy access to weapons. There's a school crisis, feelings of isolation, if they don't have good coping mechanisms, and if they have inadequate problem-solving skills. a relationship with an adult, with a peer, with a teacher, someone that knows that they care, that's a protective factor. They want to live for that person. They know that if they died, that person would be very sad. It could be just a relationship too. Sense of connection, that they've got a lot of activities, a lot of things that bring them joy in their life, that they want to live for. If there's a supportive and caring family, of course. If they have positive self-esteem, they feel good about themselves, they feel good about what they're doing. And it's not necessarily always connected to school. Positive self-esteem is connected because you're a good person, you do good things. Right? It's not connected to school. I think that's one of the big problems is that when you're in high school, everything good about you is connected to how well you do in high school. And we have to have, as parents, as caregivers, as teachers, we have to have other conversations about what makes you an amazing person. Not just your grades. And also, if there are no barriers to healthcare. For a lot of families, that is a big problem, is trying to get someone who they feel is a good fit for their child and for their family. So let's talk about the warning signs. Anyone else? Obviously, if there is a suicide threat, if they come up to you and they say, I want to die, obviously. If there's a plan or a method or access. If kids are making final arrangements, if they're giving things away, Mom, I don't need this anymore. It was nice of you to give this to me, but I don't need it. You should have it, Mom. Sudden change. That's the difference. If you had a happy-go-lucky child, and now there's a sudden change. It could be they just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or something happened, but it's something to think about. And if the change is prolonged, like they're depressed and not coming out of the room for a long period of time, you want to check in with them. If they're preoccupied with death or themes of death, or have very, very risky behaviors that they didn't have before. Signs of depression, increase in drugs and alcohol. If they're feeling hopeless or helpless, like it's just never going to change, this is how my life is going to be. One thing about teenagers is rage and irritability is a sign of depression. It's a sign of sadness. Okay, so that's the hard part, is with teenagers, they show it. They show their pain lots of times with anger and lashing out. Sleep difficulties, dramatic changes, a sense of being a burden. So, I'm no good. I'm just a burden with you. I always get in trouble. I can never do the wrong thing. It would really be better if I'm not here. It's just too much for you to handle. I can see that. If they have a profound sense of loneliness and they're not connected with anyone, and isolation, and then that sense of fearlessness, like suddenly your child who's like didn't want to take any risks, didn't want to go on a roller coaster, now wants to do everything that's risky. All right, so what can parents do? What can parents do to prevent this? Believe it or not, your child wants to have a relationship with you. They do. They may not seem like they do, but they do. They're growing and changing. So the form of the relationship and the content of the relationship might change, but they are growing and changing, and you as parents need to grow and change with them. It's parallel. It's not the same. Even though you see, when you look at your child, you see this cute, sweet, oh, you were so, oh, look, you're getting so big. You still feel, you're holding on to that childhood. Well, they're not children anymore. They're growing up. And they're trying to make their own decisions. They're trying to resolve conflict. And isn't that an important part of growing up? Don't we want them to be able to do those things on their own so that when they leave you and go to college, they're not calling you all the time? maybe some of you still want that, but that's an important part of the brain development, actually. Our kids, let me just ask you a question. What do you think it would have been like growing up if your parents knew where you were at all times? I'm just saying, come on, think about it. Think about your teenage years. If your parents knew where you were at all the time. Did you guys have that growing up? Did some of you say, come on home when the lights went off? The street lights? Did any of you have that?
Or were you somewhere different?
Or maybe you were different. Maybe you weren't that student. But were you able to ride your bike around the neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah. We only go home for.
What?
We only go home for food.
For food!
Dinner.
What would it be like for you? I just want you to bring it down, bring it back. If there were video cameras in your house when you were a teenager. I just want you to put yourself in their world right now.
How about a text message every few hours?
When you're on a
Hey, where are
date,
you?
how's it going?
Let me get an update.
Do you need me to pick you up? Are you safe?
Are you hungry?
Are you hungry? Did that happen to you? So, being a part of a teenager is being able to make mistakes. Did you all make mistakes?
Yes.
I certainly did. That's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing. Not a perfect kid. But the difference, I think, was when I made mistakes, because I made some big ones, I would get a conversation, which was almost worse than getting punished. Well, let's talk about this. What was your decision? Why did this happen? What could you have done differently? Okay, well, you know, this is what happened and this was your mistake, so you know you get consequence. There was no screaming about it. It was more like this kind of guilt. I'm like, oh, they trusted me. Because you're supposed to make mistakes at this age. And you're supposed to be able to try to figure it out. And as a parent, this is the parallel growth as a parent. We have to stop at this age. It starts in middle school, by the way. This is where it really starts in middle school, where you start changing how you're going to be talking to your child to help that growth. I can't believe I got in trouble and I didn't do it right. They're coming to you and they're like, and then you're going to be, okay, well, this is what you need to do. You need to do this and this and this and this. But you don't understand. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, so your teenager needs to know that you are hearing them, that you are listening to them, that you understand. You are now leaving from advice giving, right, to exploring and helping them negotiate their world and conflict management. So instead of that wanting to, I know what you need to do and that's the right thing and I know this is going to be good if you do what I do because I'm your parent and I have a lot of experience. You're going to say to them, that must be really hard for you. That must have been really challenging for you. I can see that you're very upset about this and I'm sorry. I know that you'll make some good decisions and if you need some help, I'm here. Let me know. How is that different than saying, okay, well, this is what you need to do? How is that different? Someone want to tell me?
It helps them try to figure out what the solution to the problem is.
Anyone else?
I think that empowers them and can give them self-esteem, that they feel one, they can have more control over their life, and then when they see they can be successful in that way, help them build that esteem.
And we're saying, yes, and we're saying you have the power within you to make the right decision. And if it doesn't go right again, well then let's talk about it. One of the things is I want to say, which is really hard, and I want to give them some time to speak, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker, but Be supportive, but not intrusive. Remember, this is preventative. This is not in the middle of a suicide situation, but preventative. Be supportive, but not intrusive. Even though we want to hear all, I think we do, maybe some of you don't, about their deep, darkest secrets. Like as a parent, we're like, maybe they have video cameras and we can go over it and look at it. That's not what they want. That's not being supportive. That's going in and validating and saying, it looks like you had a hard time last night. I'm here for you if you need it. If you'd like to talk about it, I'd like to talk to you about it too, but when you're ready. Because teenagers, if you have a good relationship with them, they need to take some time on their own to figure it out, and then they'll come and talk to you. Because they want to talk to you. The other thing that's very profound is that quality time. Quality time is so important. But that means you need to model that quality time. If you have quality time, there is no phones. Parents too. You need to put that phone away. And you have quality time with them. You go and you do something that you love to do together. You go see a movie, you go have dinner, whatever you like to do. It's time to reconnect with your high schooler. Find out who they are now as an individual, because they're changing. And in our busy, busy lives, we may not see it. But you have to model that. And don't get mad at them if they come up and they've got that cell phone. Be like, remember, I really want to spend time with you. And that cell phone, then I'm not spending time with you. Or talk about it, we're going to have a no cell phone quality time. And make sure both of you leave your cell phones at home. God forbid your car breaks down. One of the things I want to talk about is be vigilant about behavior changes after a possible suicide attempt. Lots of times there's an elevated behavior, and you think, oh, okay, good, they're happy, we're going back to normal. An elevated behavior after a suicide attempt means that could possibly mean that they have a plan and they're ready to do it. So we have to be very, very careful about that, continuous care and intervention. So when a student comes to us, all the counselors are prepared to assess students. All of us are, not just the therapists. All the counselors can assess. When a student comes to us and we hear any talk about death or dying or threat, teachers automatically send them to us and we start assessing. First, we're looking at the risk factors. We're looking at protective factors. Who is someone in your life that you can talk to? Is there anyone that who knows this about you, who knows what you're going through? That caring person. Then we'll conduct a suicide assessment, determine the risk level, and then, of course, document. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. When someone comes in and they're suicidal, I don't beat around the bush. This is not the time to dance around it. I will build some rapport with them, let them know that they're in a safe place, but I will be asking straight, are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? If you have a plan, when do you think you're going to do that? Because if you talk about it, if you're straightforward, it takes the stigma away. And they will tell you. They tell you. Yeah, I thought about it. I thought about cutting my wrists, but then that seems really painful and slow, and I don't want it to be painful and slow, so maybe I'll just jump off of a building. Like, this is what they'll tell you. This is what they have told me. So there's a time, a plan, and a means. And then I'll say to them, well, is that something you're thinking about doing tonight or soon? Are you thinking about jumping off a building soon? Maybe. Okay. So if the risk is imminent, then we call someone, they're called PMRT. You might know them as a PET team. I don't know why they changed it, it makes it so much more harder to say, PMRT, PET is so much easier. But the psychiatric mobile response team. So we call a professional to come in and assess them. They will decide the risk level. If we assess them, they will be hospitalized and in a psychiatric hospitalization for stabilization and safety. After that, they'll come out and hopefully set up a support plan. Therapy, maybe some medication to help stabilize them. And then we'll come to the school and we'll talk about at the school how we can support them at the school. We'll put together a plan for the school. So know that if that happens, all of us are very well and trained on how to support your child. At this point in time, I would like to invite our partners here from Insight Treatment to talk about what happens after the hospitalization, what kind of treatment. Does there, and then after we'll have questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
good morning.
Would you like to put in your
everybody.
mouth plan?
Yeah, we could do, Eddie, maybe you could play with that a little bit. Well, I just want to say, great presentation, Karen.
Thank you.
I really hope you guys listened when Catherine talked about how you can support your teens, how you need to be present with them, how you can have time without the phones, how you can sort of just listen to them sometimes, and make sure that you don't sort of on the way back from school ask, this is a very typical one, you know, mom comes and picks up and says, how was school today? How did it go? How, you know, tell me everything. Who are you hanging out with? What's going on? But at that point in time, the kid, your teenager, might be very tired in their head, right? It's been a long day. A lot of maybe social anxiety, a lot of things have been going on in school. They might not be in the mood to talk to mom about how the day was. Whereas maybe at 9 o'clock at night, when you guys are tired, and you guys just want to sit and do nothing, that's when the kids sort of live up a little bit, and that's when they have time. That's when they will come and sit on your bed and sit next to you and say, you know, maybe not even say anything, but just be with you, right? So these small chances you have during your day, grab onto them, because it makes a huge difference, okay? The other thing I would say just on that note before I start the regular presentation is that we obviously in the treatment program, we come in at a little bit of a later stage, right? Kids have typically been suicidal at that point. Thing has been going on for a long period of time. So as Catherine said, she was talking a lot about the preventive stuff. When the kids have been struggling for a long period of time, and I'll talk more about it, but when they have been struggling and when they have been suicidal, typically what they need is sort of a different way of being there for them. Because typically they've been able to run amok for a period of time, meaning mom and dad has a hard time setting boundaries. They've had a hard time connecting with them. So our sort of experience with parents is, at that point in time, is a little bit different. At that point in time, the parents sort of haven't really been there in their lives, actually. Because the kids have been able to manipulate and lie and get their way around things for a long period of time. And therefore, we as a treatment program have to work a lot with the family structure and with the parents to sort of help them set boundaries. Not overlook everything they do and send 100 text messages a day, but really help them set boundaries so that the kids can feel safe, so that they feel that there is actually somebody who is setting these walls in place on a daily basis, and that there is consequences, and that you can't push these walls around constantly. I'll get back to that, but it's very common that kids who are struggling with mental health issues, it's very common that they find a way to sort of manipulate their way around to avoid showing who they really are and what's really going on with them, right? They're using drugs, they want to keep that as a secret, so they come up with 100 different excuses for why they were here or not there, or how they got this money, or how. So anyway, but I'll get back to that. But yes, be with your kids, okay? Be present. Don't be anxious and stressed every time. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference. Good. So I don't know how long time do we have. Okay. But thank you all for coming, because from my perspective, working with teens who are struggling with emotional issues, behavioral issues, and drug and alcohol, it's so important to get parents more involved and to sort of help educate parents on how they can support their kids. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, Lauren and I were here when we started up some of this stuff, and there was probably 3 or 4 or 5 parents at the most. So I just think it's sort of it inspires me to see that the school has managed today to bring in, I don't know, 50 parents or something. That's awesome. And I just wanted to let you guys know that your team here with counselors and they're doing a great job, and you guys have a lot of resources available compared to many other schools. So use them. Okay, ask questions, come in and visit them. If you're scared of what's going on with your teens or with some of their friends, utilize the team here, because there's a lot of schools that really doesn't have that, has that ability or has that support around. We go out, Inside Treatment goes out to a lot of different schools and help them sort of structure some of these things and present. And we have some of our kids coming to the school to present to the kids in the schools what it is to grow up with suicidal ideation or being depressed or drug and alcohol issue. So we see a lot of different schools, and I just want you guys to take advantage of it. So okay. And cool t-shirts, by the way. I love the t-shirts.
Available in the counseling office.
Yes.
Would like to purchase one.
Yeah, please do that. Support that effort. Because it is important that we break down this stigma around mental health. The kids feel really isolated. They don't feel that they have a lot of places to go and places to talk to, or people to talk to about these kind of things. They really hide it in a big way. So we need to get it out in the open, and we need to talk about it so that, they have a place to go. Good, let me see here 1 second. Okay, so there's different levels of care. And I'm going to quickly describe some of them. So obviously, as Catherine talked about, when the kids get suicidal, the PET team often is being called, and they come in and they will assess what's going to happen. 9 out of 10 times, they want to play it safe, and they take the kids to the hospital, right? It's not, honestly, unfortunately, there's not a lot of resources. There's not that. Yeah. So often they just take the kid, the police or the PET team will take the kid and bring them to the hospital. They will go to, very often they go to a regular ER, and they will assess them there, and then from there they'll find out where is there a bed that can take in the teen in town, because there's not that many beds available, and often you will hear stories about how kids have sort of been scrambling, or families have been scrambling to find a place where they can go. So there's only certain hospitals in town that has beds for teens, or has availability for the teens.
Northridge is a big one, right?
Say again, sorry?
Northridge is a
Yes.
big one.
Absolutely.
A lot of times Northridge Hospital.
Depends on their insurance, too.
It depends on the insurance, and honestly, at the end of the day, in that moment, it depends on where is their availability, because that's usually the issue. It's very busy at the hospitals this time of year, just after school start, from now on until December, and then it gets very busy again around the exams time. But the point is, they'll go to the hospital. They will typically spend a few days there, being stabilized, maybe get on some meds, medication. But the point is, there's not a lot going on at the hospitals. It really is just stabilization to ensure that the kids are safe and they don't harm themselves or others. Then the hospital will start talking about, okay, what should the step down be from there? What is the next plan? And sometimes the hospital will recommend what's called residential treatment, which is typically a beautiful home, a house with 6 beds, Topanga Canyon or Malibu or something like that, where the kids can go and get some very intense treatment for 30 to 45 days. That's typically paid by insurance. Some of these facilities are private pay, of course, and cost everything from $30,000 to $60,000 a month. But for the most part, you can get it paid by your insurance. Bottom line is, the kids will go there because they need a little bit of time without the friends and without the bullying and without the parents interfering in their life or triggering them. So they need a bit of time for them to focus on themselves. Then from there, the kids will often step down to what's called intensive outpatient program, which is an after-school program, which is typically a place where the kids will go to their regular schools, and then they'll come to a treatment program in the afternoon and do treatment from, let's say, from 4 to 7. That's what we represent, or the program that I run, our own, is called Inside Treatment, and that's what we are offering. We're offering outpatient treatment, as it's called. And then from there, when you do that for a period of time, and the kids sort of get through that and graduate from there, then they'll transition back to just see a therapist maybe once a week or twice a week, see the counselors in the school, and take it from there. So those are the different levels of care, okay? And I just want to let you guys know that if they go to a hospital and they come out of there, they need so much more support. Okay? Please don't think that, hey, okay, they've been at the hospital now for 5 days, it's going to be fine, they're stable, they can go back to their regular life. All these things that have been going on for years typically are still very prominent in their life, and they need more support and more help. Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Quite often that's happened is that we don't know because of that stigma. You know, parents are, for whatever reason, embarrassed, or they don't want the school to know, they don't want to give it out, they don't want the teachers to know. So quite often we don't find out until another event, another crisis has happened. So it's important that you tell the school, we keep it confidential, so that we can be alerted if anything happens, and that we can support them. We can talk to their teachers. We're not going to tell the teachers about what just happened, but say, oh, you know, so-and-so's going through a really hard time, you know? So please make sure that the school knows, someone at the school that you trust knows, so that we can offer more support.
Yeah. Guaranteed the best result you'll get if you're involved in the school and have the school talk with maybe the treatment program or the psychiatrist or the therapist that they are seeing outside of school. It really is the best result. So typically, let me explain a little bit about the kids that are in a treatment program like ours, what they have been going through. Because it doesn't start with just them coming to school one day and then feeling suicidal because they broke up with their girlfriend or boyfriend, or because mom and dad are getting a divorce and they get very depressed and then they become suicidal. It's usually not like that. What happens is that typically when the kids are 8, 9, or 10 years old, when they're young, something happens in their emotional world. For many of the kids we're dealing with, they have experienced some sort of trauma. Mom and dad are getting a divorce. There's maybe a lot of yelling in the family at home, or dad is never home because he's working out of state, and they feel abandoned by that. Many kids have been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, some learning disabilities maybe, but something comes up at a very young age that makes their emotional world very different and difficult. And the way that kids usually react to that is that they'll try and shut down that emotional world. They'll disconnect from their emotions. This feeling of anxiety that I feel, it's weird, it's uncomfortable, it's scary, right? So they sort of, they just disconnect from it and pretend that everything is okay. How do you feel about dad moving to Arizona because mom and dad had a divorce? It's fine, it's okay, I understand. Dad had to go there, he had to work there, you know, I get it. Or how was school today? Did you hang out with your friends and did you play? Yeah, mom, that was cool. It was good, it was nice. Everything was okay. But reality was that school was really hard because there was a lot of social anxiety going on. School was uncomfortable. They didn't feel that they fitted in. So they start at a young age sort of lying about their emotional world and their emotional needs, and disconnect from that emotional world because that's the only way that they can sort of live a normal life, right, and do well in school. Especially if there are some high expectations, or if the kids are in a really good school, it's important for them to do well. That's what all kids want to do, right? So handling this emotional stuff that's going on, and then at the same time going to school and be good and do well on the soccer team or whatever they do, it's really hard. So then we see that when they're, let's just say, 11 and 12 and 13, we see that they're doing okay. There's not a lot of signs. Yeah, maybe they go and see a psychiatrist to get some medication. Maybe they see a therapist, but it's sort of, you know, things are going okay. And really what's happening is they're holding all these things down, right? They're putting a lid on it. They're disconnecting from their emotional world. And then unfortunately what we see is when they turn 13, 14, 15, and it becomes younger and younger and younger, we see that now they'll start acting out. Now this emotional world becomes so big for them that they can't shut it down anymore. They can't handle it anymore. The anxiety is just creeping up to a point where they just can't control it. So now they'll start acting out, right? And acting out is suicidal ideation, it's suicidal thoughts, it's self-harming. Obviously in a program like ours, we see kids who are using drugs as a way to cope with all this stuff that's going on, or smoking weed, we taking Xanax. We see kids who is being very angry at mom and dad, angry at maybe the world. We see kids who just completely isolate. They lose the desire to hang out with friends. They want to just be in their room. They just want to play computer games. And they get depressed. So my point is that kids act out in many different ways, and suicidal ideation is one of them. But what they all have in common is these many years of emotional struggles, feeling different, feeling that something is wrong with them, feeling that they're broken, feeling that nobody understands them, right? I've seen a therapist, that didn't help. I've seen a psychiatrist, I've taken my medication for a period of time, that didn't help. I've done well in school, that didn't help. I've tried to talk to mom and dad about it, they don't get it. Right? Nothing helps. So then they lose this light at the end of the tunnel. Right? And that's often where the suicidal ideation comes in. It doesn't matter. Just leave me the heck alone. This is not going to change. This is the way I'm born. This is the way I feel every bloody day. And it's not going to change. So they give up. Right? And then at the same time, as Catherine say, you know, when the world is sort of going under because of global warming, and if mom and dad are maybe struggling financially or divorcing, you know, and all these other exterior things comes up, then it just becomes too much. And then they lose the desire to just be around. Right? So my point is that there's usually many years of history before it gets to this point. And it's important to look at it from a bigger perspective and not just think, oh, she's suicidal or he's suicidal right now because he had a sports injury and can't play on the soccer team anymore. Yeah, that would be the last effect, the little drop that make the, what's it called? Tipping point. Yeah, the tipping point, right? But there's typically a long history before that you guys should be aware of or should be mindful of. So a lot of the kids sort of give up. They don't believe that this can ever change. And therefore, we believe as a treatment program that the kids needs to meet other kids who have experienced the same emotional stuff. And it comes back to this whole thing about increasing awareness or increasing, reducing the stigma around mental health. Because the kids need to feel that they're not alone with this. They need to realize that, wow, there's actually a bunch of kids who have experienced the same emotional stuff as I have, who've also felt that they were not good enough, and who also have low self-esteem, and who also feels that they're broken because there's something wrong with them. Right? So treatment is a lot about, and the way to deal with some of these things is a lot about sort of integrating into a world or community where there's other teens who have experienced the same emotional pain and struggles. Because then they can start relating to that, and then they'll actually start opening up. In many cases, they will have a hard time expressing everything that goes on to staff in a school or a psychiatrist or a therapist, right? But if you put them together with other teens, they will often start going, interesting, I like that kid over there because him and I listen to the same music or whatever, and he's expressing some things that I really relate to. And then they will start talking about it. Often the kids that start in treatment, they really don't know how to express themselves or how to express their emotions, I should rather say. They're really having a hard time dipping into this emotional world and figuring out what it is and how to explain it to other people or how to express themselves. So they need to see other kids who've been in treatment for a little while who have developed that skill of being able to present their emotions and their emotional needs. Many kids, they don't know how to say to mom and dad, hey, I need a hug. Hey, I need you guys to stop working so much. I need you guys to be home. I need you guys to listen. they don't know how to say it. They just get frustrated, or and then silent, or angry, or however they do. Okay, cool. Any questions so far? Then feel free to just interrupt and ask questions.
We're so lucky to have them here because it's their daily life, seeing these students who have gone to that point where they feel like they have no other way. They have no other coping mechanisms. They have repressed all of their emotions for so long that when world gets so complex by the time they're in high school, they don't have anything to be able to grasp, to be able to handle that complex world. And especially with the communication, when he was talking about everything's okay, everything's fine. They learn not to be able to communicate what's going on. And so it's a really difficult time for teenagers because they don't want you to ask about their life, but they want you to ask about their life. And so, you know, they want you to be involved, but they don't want you to be involved. It's a hard time for parents, right? Like, stop asking me questions.
And they don't, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, and they just they don't want you to take away their phone, right? And say, okay, now you're gonna put your phone away for 2 hours. They don't want you to tell them that they have to be home at 12 o'clock, or that you guys have to have access to their phone, or you guys wanna know who they're hanging out with, who their friends are, and that you guys wanna talk to the parents. They don't want you guys to do that, right? It's a natural instinct from a teenager to push away and push these boundaries. But you guys need to do it. Because if you do it, I guarantee you, the kids somewhere deep down inside feel safe. And they feel that there's somebody who's taking care of them. Somebody watching, not watching, but that there's somebody who cares for them. If you don't do it, if you allow for these kids, Mom, you know what, I need to sleep with my phone, I need to have it in my room, and I don't go to bed before 4 o'clock in the morning because I need to be on social media all night. And you don't set boundaries because you're scared. Ooh, what if she gets suicidal again? Right? Or, ooh, I feel bad about it. I know that some of the anxiety she has is because of my own anxiety. Right? If you don't set these boundaries, I guarantee you, the kids are gonna not feel safe. And when they don't feel safe, they don't feel loved. Right? So think about that. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel somebody's really taking care of you somewhere deep down inside, it's hard to feel secure and it's hard to feel loved.
And they may react and get angry. And it's important as a parent to try not to react and be like, it's because I love you, I care about you. That's the message. Try not to be reactive when they're reactive. That's what they want. They're not doing this intentionally. It's just what they do. That's what teenagers do. They become
Absolutely.
So one other thing I also, you brought up a good point, is that try to have conversations about things other than school. Please engage with them. That's about emotional regulation. If you're only having conversations about conflict, about struggles, where's the balance? So that's something that you can do as a parent, to start talking about, I don't want to talk about school. Let's talk about something else. What are you into nowadays? Yeah, I feel like I don't know you anymore. What do you talk about happy? Gosh. And if you see them and they're happy, acknowledge that. Looks like you had a good day today. What's going on? Right? So it's not always about the struggle. Does that make sense? Right? Are we engaged? And if you say, well, what else do we have to talk about besides school? Well, let's find something.
Yeah.
Figure it out. There's something that they like, right? There's something that they like.
I don't know.
You guys
Time to
like.
reconnect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, in a treatment program like ours, it's always about the family, right? And I think my message often to parents is, again, now a little further, right? Most of you guys have got kids where they don't need to be in treatment, they're not at that point at all. But we often talk to parents about how they are part of the solution, right? They're part of the problem, they're part of the solution. If you continue to do what you have been doing and raising the kid, most likely it's not going to change, right? So often in these cases, when kids need to go to a program like ours, parents need to change too, right? It's not just the kids who are kids and struggling, and they have their issues. It's always related to something that goes on in the family and how the family is operating. So often, if you have a kid who is suicidal, I would bring the message across, which is, you know what, I know you're struggling. And mom and dad are really aware that it's not just you, but that we are part of it as well. And we all need to go into some therapy. We all need to take part of this situation that has occurred. It's not just you who's struggling and is broken and is, you know. So.
And what a great message that sends to your child. It tells them that you're not perfect either, and that you're willing to work and to explore and look at the underlying reasons for why this is happening. What a great lesson in that, and what a great model.
Yes. So I hope that gives you guys a good idea of how it is to work with the team from our perspective.
And I would also say that on many occasions I would have parents of a family friend that would call me. So please, if you know someone, if your child goes to you and says someone's suicidal, get help. Don't wait. Very often a child will tell a friend, and the friend will tell a parent, and the parent's like, I don't want to get involved, right? That's that stigma. I don't want to create waves. Please, you could be saving a life. If the parents get mad at you, what matters is that you saved a child's life. That's what really matters. You can deal with the anger and the frustration later.
And even if it's anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Put a letter in their mailbox and say, hey, please watch out for this person because I hear so and so and so. It doesn't have to be with your name on it. But our kids go out, I don't remember when it is, but our kids are going to come and present to the kids here at Chaminade their life story and stuff. And one of the messages that they will come out with is this whole idea, hey, you're not being a good friend by being a snitch and not wanting to tell anybody else that your friend here is struggling or has suicidal ideation, right? The way to help your friend is to really speak out and say to your friend, you know what, I know you're struggling. If you don't go and talk to mom and dad about it, I have to. Because that's how I show love, that's how I show respect to my friends. I know that now. So most of these kids have a tendency to sort of keep their secrets and keep it amongst themselves. So if you guys hear anything, speak out. Tell the team, tell the parent, even if you don't have to put your name on it, that's completely cool.
Yeah, I just want to share, one of my daughter's friends did share with her a story like that, and she gave her a letter, like a post letter. When my daughter showed it to me, I was not sure how to react, but basically I told my daughter, I appreciate the fact that you showed me, and I did contact that mom. And then at the end, I don't know ultimately what happened because our relationship wasn't super strong, but I know that we did the right thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And right, you don't have to sit with that as a parent. Oh my
for
gosh.
sure, for sure.
So in your
For sure,
handout,
that was a hard call, but
yes,
good.
yes,
We did it.
but you saved it.
Yeah.
So on here we've got hotlines and websites for you to look at.
And as you guys probably know from a notice that went out earlier in the year, on the back of the Chaminade ID cards, there is the suicide hotline number on the back.
Yeah, they're doing a lot at the school, so support it by showing up for these kind of things and
Tell a friend.
support the team, right? Because
Bring people in.
it is important. Bring people in, right?
We did have thoughts about doing it at night too, because, people work. So that's something that we are looking at doing this spring.
Yeah. Feel free to come to us and ask any questions. Some of you might not be able to stay any longer or whatever it is they have going on, but we will stick around. So if you have any questions, come talk to us, grab anything off the table. Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Yes, sorry. To interrupt, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's all that coffee. Oh, we have surveys. So this is really, really important. We put together a little survey trying to think of what might you like for us to present for you. Because this is going to be an ongoing series. So check any that sound interesting to you, but if you have something that you would like us to bring as a support for a parent seminar, please write it on the bottom and turn it in. It's really going to help us.
Raise your hand if you didn't get a survey and I'll bring it to you.
And I'm just so grateful to have these two amazing people here. to come and talk to, our students, and it's so impactful for them to hear it from their peer, right? About what they went through and their transformation and their healing. That there is a happiness at the end.
It can change.
It can change. That they're not helpless or hopeless. That can change.
Please.
And then everyone sign in if you haven't either.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question that I'm thinking of, but a lot of the tension comes from a lot of different layers, but I think most that affects the tension is anxiety.
Yes.
So I know that a lot of the schools, not a lot, but some of the schools are really approach anxiety.
Yes.
One of them is mindfulness and also
Absolutely.
meditation. Why can't we bring that to the school? Because I know some of the public schools
Do it, absolutely.
so we can talk about this, but can we do something for our, I don't know.
Write that on the bottom there on that, can you write that on your bottom?
Yeah, just not
Yeah.
sending them to these, Saturday
Yeah.
meditation, but maybe the intention could be just meditation, sitting down, doing nothing but just.
Mindfulness?
Yeah, mindfulness, cause like, I know it's, when they go to detention, they just have to sit there and just write something, but I don't think they get it, you know? So I'm thinking like, having some kind of mindfulness meditation, I know Santa Monica High School is already doing that, I think starting last year, and then the meditation could go from like 10 minutes to 30 minutes to even 2 hours. But I think that kind of helps them, reduce the anxiety, and they could kind of feel like, well, school is doing something for me, and they have that connection. So I'm like thinking, can we bring that to the school, because, I'm like, the school is good, but can we make it different and great, and help our, us, as a parent, because we could do all these things, but we kind of need your support too.
Good point, and I can say my little daughter, she's 5 now, just started preschool, and she has meditation. That's part of it, they do it 3 minutes, right? But they teach now in a very young age, they try to integrate it into the school.
Yes, I would say model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modeling is always really important.
Just kind of to add on to her, I wrote on anxiety and coping skills would be the most important topic for our family.
Yes.
And it's different when a parent tells you
Oh,
something,
right.
than when a teacher tells you
Yes.
something. So if teachers were kind of maybe for counseling, giving coping skills and breathing and, repatterning negative thoughts into positive thoughts, it's one thing for me to say it, it's another thing for teachers to say it.
So
Or teach it.
one of the things that even students have said is that I would like to have a group because, they feel very isolated when they have the anxiety and they're not, for so many of them. So it is something that I'm looking into, is at least here, having, a group for students who are experiencing extreme anxiety, teaching them the coping skills and the mindfulness and the breathing. And actually, a lot of it is psychoeducation. It really talks about what is happening when you are having anxiety. Your body feels it is ready to fight something.
Even using that class as a PT class, yoga.
Yep.
Participate in the exercise.
Yep. I think those are all great ideas. I would love for you to write those ideas on your parent survey, so I can.
I'm sorry I was so late, but don't you have something that's like a Wednesday meditation day? Wasn't there something that was happening?
So we started, just in September, we started Wellness Wednesdays here.
Yeah.
That's also kind of part of our, wellness program that we're trying to build up. So we've only had one. So the theme basically we're picking one Wednesday a month and we're giving it a theme and doing an activity or something. We're sort of limited to lunchtime. We've tried Xbox before, but all of our stressed out students are going to their classrooms, which they should be. So it's, it's kind of it's a competition with that we've found. So we're still trying to figure out the best way to reach them and to give them the appropriate time to do these things that we offer. But we brought in puppies. In September, you may have seen the notices for that for stress relief. So we saw teachers out there too. So I think it was very well received. So this coming this month, we're doing it on October 30th. And the theme actually appropriate for Halloween is what mask do you wear? So we're gonna be talking about the different messages we give ourselves, self-talk, maybe what they're putting out there is not what's true inside, which we've kind of touched on today as well. How they look and how what messages they're sending outside may not be reflective of what's really on the inside. So we're working on activities for that, but that's our theme for this month.
Okay.
So-
Well, Catherine and I have talked, I'm a meditation teacher, and I just actually was talking with my mom this morning about my daughter, she's 14. And I hear all the other parents complaining about their daughter's so emotional and they're fighting and all this anxiety and stress is happening. And just the other day I noticed, I was in a circle of moms and I didn't have anything to complain about. My daughter, she does have her issues, of course, but my reaction to those issues are different than the other moms. So my mom, I was just talking to her this morning, she was reminding me, my daughter's been exposed to meditation since she was very small, in her pajamas at night places. So her whole life she's been exposed to it. But not only that, but my reaction to her hormonal changes and such is different as well. So I highly recommend it, you know, not only as a monthly thing where it has a topic, but as an outlet for people. I know my son, he's a junior, and some of his friends here have wanted to, and it hasn't worked out yet, to come to one of my classes. But maybe we can figure something out where it can be a safe haven to go to, like once a week even, or something,
Yeah,
where it's
that'd be
quiet
great.
time, where there's no agenda even of what to talk about. Just a welcoming place, because I know there are kids interested in it, too.
Okay, so we would love that, if you write that on your
Yeah.
survey, I think it would be really helpful for us, cause, you know, as counselors, we can only do what is sort of in our realm within the counseling, but it would be really helpful to hear from the parents on how they would like to see, you know, things happen next year, so.
Any other questions for any of our guests or counselors?
I'm just so happy to see all you. I mean, for this really difficult conversation in the morning, I'm just really, really appreciative that all of you made it here. Really, really am. We had no idea how many people would show up for an RSVP. So it's just really great to see all of you. Thank you so much. And we'll hear after if you need to come up and talk to one of us, if there are other questions.
Thank you all, and stay tuned for our next one.